Hey guys, tonight we begin with the sulfur stained hands, toothaches, and thin blankets of industrial London's most invisible workers. Young orphan girls who made the very matches that lit Victorian fireplaces and gas lamps. You're one of them now. You wake up coughing. Again. The room is pitch dark, except for a weak orange flicker leaking through cracked brick from the gas lamp outside. Your nose is running, but not from a cold, just the usual stinging from yesterday's phosphorus. You're lying shoulder to shoulder with five other girls on a straw mattress that smells like vinegar, damp socks, and whatever mold dreams are made of. Your back itches. Your legs are cramped. You don't remember the last time you slept, alone or upright or without someone's elbow in your ribs. And your name? Well, the overseer forgot it months ago. You're just number 17 now. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You peel off your shared blanket, more like a curtain's ghost than an actual textile, and swing your legs off the mattress. The floor is cold and sticky. You try not to think about what's stuck to it. The factory horn hasn't rung yet, but your body is already moving, muscle memory pulling you toward another 14-hour shift like a marionette with frayed strings. Breakfast? That'll be a hunk of crust if you're lucky, or a lick of molasses if someone remembered to steal a spoonful yesterday. Your stomach gave up on protest weeks ago. It's more of a resigned sigh now. Some mornings, you find a bit of leftover bread tucked under the straw. You're not supposed to hide food, but hunger doesn't read rule books. Your gums throb as you chew. You've been meaning to ignore that. The other girls warned you, if your jaw starts glowing in the dark, don't tell anyone. Just hope it stops. The room you sleep in is technically a dormitory, although that word suggests a bit more dignity than the truth. It's a 3-story tenement with walls that bleed soot and windows that wheeze with every gust of coal smoke. You share your floor with 32 other girls, all under 15, many under 10. There are 6 mattresses and 2 working wash basins. Privacy? A myth. So is quiet. The girls dress in silence. No one bothers talking before work. Some are too sleepy. Others are conserving energy. Mostly it's because what's there to say? Looking forward to losing more fingernail today, Matilda? Hope you don't faint into the sulfur vat again, Elsie. You button your apron over a threadbare shift and pull on boots that are 3 sizes too large, stuffed with rags to keep them from slipping off. Your socks don't match. One isn't even a sock, just a sleeve tied at the ankle. But it's fine. Fashion has left the building, possibly on fire. Outside, the street is already stirring. Milk carts rattle, chimneys spit black ghosts into a gray sky. You step out with the others into a fog that isn't quite fog, more like a toxic whisper. London doesn't smell like tea and scones. It smells like smoke, rot, and factory sweat. You walk in a line of small shoulders hunched against the wind, each girl a shivering matchstick herself. The factory looms 2 blocks away, squatting behind a wrought iron gate like a sullen beast. The building is all grime and glass, with tall windows that never open and a roofline jagged with chimneys. You can already smell the phosphorus. Inside, the day begins not with a good morning, but with the dull clang of a bell and the even duller voice of the floor manager yelling, "Move." You scurry to your station. Each of you gets a tray of untreated matchsticks and a vat of yellow phosphorus paste. The goal: dip, dry, and stack as fast as possible. No talking, no questions, no daydreaming unless you want a cane across your back. Here's a fun fact: white phosphorus, the kind you're using, glows faintly in the dark. That's not romantic. That's a warning. It's the reason girls leave the factory with jaws swollen like balloons and teeth falling out like raindrops. Fossy jaw, they call it. It starts with a toothache and ends with your skull crumbling from the inside out. Historians still argue whether factory owners understood how dangerous it was or just pretended not to. Your fingers are already starting to feel numb. You blew on them during breakfast, hoping the stiffness would fade, but it hasn't. You dip another batch of sticks. One of them breaks in the vat. You fish it out quickly. Too slow, and the overseer will bark. Too clumsy, and the whole tray could ignite. That's not a metaphor. The factory has exploded 3 times in the last year. Once, a girl's apron brushed the open flame and whoosh, half the room went up. The matches didn't even need help. They were practically begging to combust. Still, you're one of the lucky ones. You haven't been burned. You still have all your teeth. And your name, whatever it used to be, hasn't appeared in the morning roll call of absences. Yet. By 9 a.m., your hands are sticky, your throat tastes like chalk, and you've already dipped 300 sticks. Only 3,000 to go. You hit your rhythm by mid-morning, not because you're energized, but because your body knows it's better not to resist. Resistance costs energy. Energy is precious. So you dip, lift, lay out, repeat, each movement robotic, smooth, and just fast enough to avoid attention. Any slower, and the foreman notices. Any faster, and your hands start to shake. And that, in here, is asking for trouble. The air is thick now, not just thick with heat or smoke or the stench of chemicals, though all those are certainly present, but thick in that invisible way, where every breath feels like sucking soup through your teeth. Your mouth tastes of copper. Your eyes sting. You blink, but it barely helps. You glance at Lucy next to you. Her lips are blue. That's not new. She's 7. She wipes her nose on her sleeve, never stopping the rhythm. Dip, lift, lay out. Dip, lift, lay out. She smells like vinegar and sweat. So do you. So does everyone. The room is a parade of pale girls in oversized dresses and small hands, trembling near dangerous things. Around 10 o'clock, someone drops a tray. The crash is deafening. A pause hangs in the air like a held breath. The overseer doesn't say a word. He just walks toward the sound, cane in hand. You don't look. No one looks. That's the rule. Looking makes it worse. You focus on your own tray, suddenly hyper-aware of every muscle. Dip slower, breathe quieter, hope harder. Sometimes you wonder why they keep hiring girls so young, but you know the answer. Small fingers are good for precision, and small voices don't complain much. Also, let's be honest, small bodies cost less to feed. Victorian match factories weren't designed for comfort, safety, or even function, really. They were designed for output. As many matches as possible, as fast as possible, using the cheapest labor available. Orphans like you were basically disposable cogs in a sulfur-stinking wheel. You learn to watch the smoke. Some days, it drifts lazily upward, thick and yellow, but bearable. Other days, it clings to the floor like a swamp, coating your legs and creeping up your skirt, whispering, "You shouldn't breathe this," with every exhale. Fun historical fact. Phosphorus poisoning can start with jaw pain and end with full blown necrosis. Quirky detail: the exposed bone glows faintly in the dark, earning it the nickname the Devil's Nightlight. Historians still argue whether that eerie glow terrified the girls or just made it easier to find each other in the dorm at night. You're not sure which would be worse. When break time comes, and it's not guaranteed, mind you, it's barely enough for anything useful. You wipe your hands on your apron and shuffle toward the back room with the others. The benches are warped, half the wood is splintered, and one girl is already sitting with her head between her knees, trying not to faint again. You get a crust of bread, literally, the hard outer end of yesterday's loaf, tough enough to serve as a tool or a weapon, depending on how desperate things get. There's also a sliver of cheese, if the rats didn't get it first. You chew slowly, not because you're savoring it, but because your jaw won't move faster than that. It clicks when you chew. You pretend not to notice. Lucy asks if you want her crust. She says her stomach hurts too much anyway. You take it because you know what she means by hurts. It's not hunger, it's rot. There are no bathrooms, only an outhouse behind the building that's barely more than a pit and a promise. If you ask to go, you lose time. If you wait too long, you lose dignity. So, you learn tricks. You go before shifts. You hold it until breaks. You pretend you're stronger than you are. At this point, you might be wondering where the adults are. Aren't there rules, regulations, laws? Well, yes, eventually. But in the mid 1800s, factory inspections were more of a theoretical concept. Inspectors showed up maybe once a year. Sometimes they came after a fire, sometimes after a body. Usually, someone swept the worst of the soot off the walls, made you wear your nicest rags, and told you to smile. You once got a boiled sweet from an inspector. He handed it to you like a medal. You nearly cried. The older girls joke that being sick is the only way to get a day off. One of them tried it, made herself faint by skipping food for 2 days and inhaling phosphorus too fast. She got the day off, all right. She spent it in a supply closet with a pail, a blanket, and no medical care whatsoever. She came back the next day, paler, quieter. That's when you realize the factory doesn't want healthy workers. It wants cheap ones. And you? You're as cheap as they come. By now, the back of your neck is coated in a grimy paste of sweat, sulfur dust, and the unmistakable funk of Victorian London air. It's not just industrial pollution, it's horse droppings, chimney soot, and the collective breath of thousands of people who haven't met a toothbrush. The factory doesn't smell bad anymore. Not really. It's just the smell of life, or at least survival. You shuffle back to your post. The tray is still half full. The sticks stare back at you like tiny accusations. You try not to blink too much. Each time you do, the sting gets worse. Someone once told you that blinking is how your eyes clean themselves. Your eyes are failing the sanitation inspection. You return to work. Dip, shake, place. Your hands are red and stiff. The skin between your fingers is beginning to crack. There's a spot on your thumb that doesn't hurt anymore, and that's worrying. Pain means something is still alive. You glance at the factory wall clock, though it's less a clock and more a decorative guilt machine. It's just past noon. Hours to go, probably more than you want to count. In this factory, time doesn't move forward. It just loops endlessly, like the grinding of a gear with one tooth missing. The afternoon is when things get weird. The heat rises, the fumes intensify. Sometimes you see shadows move where nothing should be moving. The older girls call it phantom smoke. They say if you see it 3 days in a row, you're next. Next for what? No one says. but they stop sitting next to you at dinner. You start humming. Everyone hums something different. Bits of lullabies, church hymns, even tavern tunes they shouldn't know. It's the only way to fight the silence that's loud enough to make your ears ache. Your hum is oranges and lemons. You've never actually seen an orange. Suddenly there's a cough, a sharp, wet cough. It comes from somewhere behind you, not the usual London fog in the lungs kind of cough. No, this one's deeper, like something is rattling loose. You don't turn around, you don't need to. Someone else has the rot. That's what they call it when the phosphorus takes hold. First it's a tooth, then a gum, then a jawbone that won't stop glowing in the dark and aching through the day. The rot doesn't stop for girls. It doesn't care if you're only 8 or 10 or almost grown. If anything, it prefers the quiet ones. Easier to ignore. You remember when it started for May. She had freckles and a funny little way of snorting when she laughed. One day she woke up with a swollen cheek. By the end of the week, she couldn't close her mouth. By the next, she was gone. Sent to hospital, they said. The same hospital, probably, where they send dead cats, which is to say, nowhere. Historians still debate the exact toll of phosphorus exposure on child laborers. Some say hundreds, others insist it was thousands, lost to jaw rot, chronic poisoning, or plain old factory accidents. The records weren't exactly meticulous when your name was Girl Number 11 South Dock Lane. You get through the afternoon on autopilot. Your mind detaches. You float just a little above your body, like a balloon someone forgot to tie down. You think about things you don't really understand. What it would be like to sleep in a feather bed. What strawberries taste like. What it means to own your own comb. And then you're snapped back. A hand grabs your shoulder. It's the overseer. You've gone too slow. He doesn't hit you. Not this time. Just sneers and mutters something about lazy little gutter snipes. You nod quickly, breath caught in your throat. You weren't being lazy. You were just gone for a second. One of the older girls winks at you across the aisle. Her name might be Clara, or maybe Tess. You don't always get introduced properly. She mouths something at you. Keep dipping. You do. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rings. Not for your factory, but maybe a school or a church or something where children don't carry flame on sticks. You pause for just a heartbeat. Somewhere, there are children learning Latin or spilling milk on their homework. You're here, growing up by combustion. By mid-afternoon, your arms have crossed into a new category of exhaustion. Not pain exactly, but something more slippery. Like your muscles have turned to warm porridge and your joints are being held together by a polite agreement rather than bone and sinew. Your hands still move. That's all that matters. Movement means survival. The air has gone syrupy again. The fumes are stronger now, like the factory is trying to slowly smoke everyone from the inside out. Your throat feels like it's lined with chalk dust. You swallow, and it tastes like burnt pennies. One of the girls starts coughing again. Emma, the tall one with the wiry hair. This time it's bad. Wet. Racking. She folds in on herself, arms wrapped tight, trying to muffle the sound. The overseer walks past. He hears. He always hears. But he doesn't stop. Just mutters, "Don't bleed on the stock," and moves on. You want to help her? You don't. Helping means stopping. Stopping means trouble. Emma eventually stops on her own, one arm clutched around her ribs like she's trying to hold herself together. She gives you a half smile, like everything's fine, then goes back to dipping. Another fun fact, the phosphorus paste you handle daily is so toxic it can cause spontaneous combustion when exposed to air for too long. That's not a rumor. That's chemistry. And yet, here you are, elbow deep in the stuff, no gloves, no ventilation, and no concern beyond not dropping the tray. Some factories started using red phosphorus by the late 1800s. It was safer, less likely to cause phossy jaw, and didn't glow in the dark. But yours? Still firmly in the what's a regulation era. Historians still argue whether profit margins or ignorance delayed the switch. You're pretty sure it was both. Eventually, your body starts to ignore discomfort the way a drowning person stops noticing water. Your skin itches constantly, like you've been rolling in nettles. And maybe you have. You've never actually seen a nettle, just heard about them from a girl who used to live near grass. You assume they feel like phosphorus. Everything does, eventually. Break time again. Not a full one, just a sit for 5 minutes and try not to pass out kind of break. You find your usual spot, a wooden crate near the drafty back window where the breeze sometimes pushes the smoke in different directions. It doesn't help much, but it's something. You sip from the tin cup you filled this morning. The water is warm now, slightly gray. You don't ask why. Asking why is for people with options. The girls around you aren't talking much. Words are expensive here. Every sentence costs a breath, and every breath tastes like someone else's sweat. Instead, you communicate in looks, shrugs, and half smiles, like prisoners who've accepted the terms of their sentence and found comfort in the company. You start to hum again. This time, it's not a song, just a tone, low and steady. The kind of sound that makes your teeth vibrate slightly and your brain forget, for a moment, that it lives in a body. Lucy hums with you. So does Clara. Soon there's a soft chorus of girls producing a barely there harmony, like bees singing themselves to sleep inside a teacup. Then the bell rings again. Back to the vats. You don't groan. You don't sigh. You just stand. Groaning and sighing are luxuries. You used yours up last winter. You return to your station, but now something feels off. There's a smell. A new one. Still sulfurous. Still sharp. But now tinged with sweetness. Sickly sweet. You recognize it. Everyone does. It's the smell of phosphorus starting to heat up. You freeze. So do the girls around you. Someone's tray must have been too close to the stove. You hear the hiss before you see the smoke. A match head flares. One, then two. Then the tray goes up. Panic is quiet in places like this. No screaming, no dramatic rushes. Just a collective intake of breath, the clatter of a stool tipping, and the unmistakable sound of fire finding something flammable and deciding to stay a while. You drop to the floor. That's the rule. Down is safer. Fire goes up. Girls go down. You learn that in your first week. You curl under the bench, face pressed to your knees, while smoke billows like angry fog across the ceiling. Someone yells. Someone runs. The overseer shouts something about contain it, but his voice breaks halfway through. You can smell his fear. It's mixed with burnt hair and scorched cloth. Then, like a miracle, or at least like physics cooperating, the fire sputters. Dies. Someone threw a blanket over it. Maybe Clara, maybe Emma. You don't know. You wait a full minute before standing. The factory is silent now, except for coughing. The girls look at each other. No one speaks. The overseer leaves, probably to write up a report that says, minor incident, no injuries. Girls resumed work promptly. You do resume, because what else is there? And as your fingers resume their cursed choreography, dip, lift, lay out, you think, not for the first time, that this place wasn't built to kill you quickly. It was built to kill you slowly. Late afternoon, is when your fingers stop feeling like fingers and start feeling like someone else's problem. They're red, sticky, and swollen, but detached, like you're dipping twigs in poison on behalf of a girl who vaguely resembles you. You keep working anyway, because that's what you do. You work. You try not to notice that the air has turned yellowish again. It always does around this time. The phosphorus haze thickens as heat rises, and ventilation, well, that's a funny word here. Ventilation is what the overseer calls the one cracked window near the ceiling, the one too high to reach and permanently jammed halfway open. Someone drops a tray again. This time it's you. Not all of it, just a dozen matchsticks, some already tipped with sulfur paste. They scatter across the floor like ants escaping a flood. You freeze. You wait. You hear footsteps, the measured kind. Here he comes. The overseer doesn't yell. He just steps into your peripheral vision, picks up one of the sticks, and holds it between two fingers like it offends him personally. Sloppy, he mutters. And slow. You brace. But he just tosses the stick onto your tray and walks away. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding, then immediately regret it, because inhaling in here is never a gift. Behind you, Lucy whispers, "That was close." You nod without turning. The overseer only hits the ones he thinks won't break yet. You must still be worth something. By now, you've dipped over 1,000 sticks. Maybe more. You stopped counting around lunchtime. Time itself stopped cooperating hours ago. The sun is slanting through the tall windows in watery streaks, like it's ashamed to be here. The light cuts through the smoke in golden ribbons, which is pretty if you don't think about how much of that gold is made of airborne toxins. Here's something nobody tells you. Your clothes are part of the danger. Cotton aprons catch flame easily, and most of you wear the same two outfits in rotation, both stained with phosphorus, both flammable enough to qualify as kindling. Historians note that many factory fires started not from machines, but from sparks landing on a girl's sleeve. Sometimes you dream of cotton, not the flammable kind, the soft, fresh kind, clean sheets, puffy dresses, something you could touch without it fighting back. But those dreams don't visit often. They know they're not welcome here. You glance at the girl to your left. Her name might be Sarah or Sally. You're not sure. She's one of the quiet ones. She hasn't spoken all day. Now you notice her nose is bleeding. She doesn't notice. You want to hand her a rag, but your hands are full. So you just keep going. Dip, lift, lay out. That's the only rhythm that matters. You remember the first time you saw the sulfur vats. You were maybe 5, maybe 6, too young to understand why the air stung or why your fingertips felt warm for hours afterward. The other girls called it the sting, like it was a badge of honor. One even said, "If it doesn't burn, it's not working." That same girl lost half her jaw a year later. Phosphorus, it turns out, is greedy. It wants into your bloodstream. It wants your teeth. It wants your bones. It doesn't ask nicely. Some girls fight it. Eat chalk to absorb the toxins, smear mustard on their gums, chew licorice root like it's holy. None of it really works, but it feels like doing something. And doing something is the last power you have. You scrape a fleck of paste from your finger with the corner of your tray. You're supposed to wear finger stalls, tiny leather caps to protect your fingertips, but they ran out last month. And anyway, they make the work slower. Management says speed is safer than stalls. You try not to laugh at that. It'd come out sounding hollow. Sometimes the thought creeps in. How many more years? How long before your jaw swells? Before your fingers refuse to unbend? Before you get that smell in your nose, the sweet one, the rot? You shake it off. You can't afford those thoughts. Your job is simple. Make matches. Don't faint, don't burn, don't die. It's amazing how low the bar can go and still trip people. At the end of the row, someone starts singing, softly, almost under her breath, a hymn. Something about light and grace. It's ironic, really. Light has not been graceful to you. You join in, barely audible, just enough to feel like you're still human. And for a moment, the factory shifts. The haze doesn't sting quite so much. The matches don't hiss quite so loud. You're just a girl, among other girls, making fire with bare hands, singing under your breath in a world that forgot you were ever here. By early evening, your hands are trembling, not from fear, though that's a constant background hum, but from fatigue, the kind that seeps into your knuckles and makes it hard to tell whether you're holding a matchstick or a memory. You keep dipping, you keep going. You don't get to decide when your shift ends. The bell does, and the bell doesn't care if your fingers are blistered or if someone fainted and cracked their head on the tray stand, which, by the way, happened last Tuesday. You remember the noise. It was dull, like a sack of onions hitting cobblestone. Your tray is nearly full again. The sticks lie there, neat little soldiers in rows, all tipped in yellow. You've gotten fast. Efficient. That's not a compliment. It just means your instincts have accepted your reality. Suddenly, a sharp pop. Your tray hisses. Everyone freezes. A single match has ignited at the edge. Maybe a spark? Maybe heat from your hand. Maybe just spite from the universe. You slap it down instantly with the heel of your palm. Burnt skin peels away with it, but the fire doesn't spread. You're lucky. You smell cooked meat. It's your thumb. No one comes to help. No water. No bandage. You blow on it quietly, then go right back to work. Later, when the bell finally rings and you shuffle out with the other girls, the supervisor nods at you. Not kindly, not cruelly, just like he's counting ducks. 17, still here. Still here. What an achievement. You file out into the alley behind the building. The light outside is gold gray now, the London fog mixing with the late sun like old soup. You can barely see the sky. Your lungs protest with every breath. The pain in your thumb pulses in time with your heartbeat, but it's oddly comforting. It reminds you you're still alive, or at least still flammable. Here's an odd little piece of history. Some factories employed fire watchers, girls whose only job was to stare at the trays for signs of smoke, like little canaries with anxiety. Except when the fire came, they burned too. Historians still debate whether the position actually prevented disasters or just shifted the blame onto children too young to spell combustion. You didn't have a fire watcher today. You don't most days. You walk home, if you can call it that. Home is a dormitory above the tannery with thin walls and thinner mattresses. The street is thick with slush and coal dust. Your boots squelch with every step. You sidestep a puddle that smells like boiled cabbage and regret. On the way, you pass a cart selling roasted chestnuts. The smell is so sweet it makes your mouth water and ache. Your gums throb at the thought of chewing. You consider asking for one, just one. But then you remember the last time a girl begged for food. The seller smacked her with the back of his hand and shouted, "No matches, no meal." He thought it was clever. You keep walking. Inside the dormitory, the girls are peeling off. Layers like tired onions. Boots thump. Aprons flutter to the floor. Someone is crying quietly in the corner. No one asks why. She probably doesn't know either. Sometimes the tears come just because. You sit on your cot, a generous word for a wooden pallet with a burlap sack, and inspect your hand. The thumb is blistered, but not open. It will peel tomorrow. You'll wrap it in part of your apron, Pretend it's fine and dip with your other hand until it heals or falls off, whichever comes first. Lucy flops down beside you, her cheeks smudged with soot. You smell like toast, she says. You both laugh. It's not funny, but it's the only laugh you'll get today, so you take it. Someone starts singing again, the same hymn from earlier. A girl named Maud adds harmony. She's surprisingly good. You close your eyes. In your dreams, if they come, you'll be somewhere green. A place without sulfur. A field with real grass. A sky you can actually see. A picnic basket, maybe. Strawberries. And a comb. Definitely a comb. But for now, you lie back. The straw pokes your ribs. Your thumb pulses. And in the matchstick glow of your imagination, you almost forget what you are. A spark, burning slowly, one tray at a time. You wake to the sound of someone retching. It's still dark, the kind of dark that makes everything look like a shadow, pretending to be something else. You grope for your apron, using your burned thumb as little as possible, and slip it over your head by muscle memory alone. The girl who's vomiting sounds like Elsie, is crouched near the wash basin. A wet splatter hits the floorboards. She groans softly. You recognize that sound too well. It's the sound of Fossey Jaw introducing itself. Nobody moves to help her. Not because they don't care, but because they do. And caring, in this place, is like leaning over a well with no bottom. You've all learned to ration your concern like stale bread. You stand, boots already half tied from the night before, and shuffle to the window. A thin stripe of gray has crept along the horizon. London is stretching awake like an old dog, coughing, wheezing, barking through its chimneys. Your stomach doesn't bother growling anymore. It knows there's nothing coming. You gnaw on a crust from yesterday and hope it doesn't chip another tooth. Elsie wipes her mouth and joins the line. That's the unspoken rule. If you can stand, you can work. On the way to the factory, you pass the street sweeper, Mr. Hobbs. He's out every morning, brushing muck into ditches with a broom that has fewer bristles than friends. He winks at you and hands over something wrapped in brown paper. It's warm, a heel of bread with actual butter. You're stunned. You shove it into Lucy's hands without thinking. She squeaks. You whisper, "Eat it, quickly." You don't tell her why you gave it to her. You just do. She's been coughing more. That's reason enough. Back in the factory, the day begins again. Tray, paste, dip, stack. You wince every time your thumb grazes the tray's edge. The blister broke in the night. Now it's raw, angry, alive. By noon, the pain merges with everything else. Background noise, like your own heartbeat. But something odd happens today. A man enters. Not the overseer. Not a delivery boy. A real man. Fancy shoes. Hat. Notebook. The girls straighten instinctively. You swipe at your cheeks with your sleeve. You don't know why. There's no dirt left that can be wiped off. He doesn't speak to any of you. Just walks the aisles, scribbling into his notebook, pausing occasionally to squint at the vats. The overseer follows him like a loyal dog, explaining loudly, "We've reduced exposure. Rotation schedules. Sanitation protocols." You blink slowly. Lies, all of it. No one rotates. No one sanitizes. Most of the buckets haven't been scrubbed since last summer. The man stops near your station. His eyes linger on your bandaged thumb. He doesn't say a word, but he writes something down. Then he leaves. That evening, there's gossip. "He's from the newspapers," one girl says. "No, from the government," another insists. "Ah, from heaven," someone mutters. Everyone laughs. Historians still argue whether these visits meant anything. Some say they spurred reform. Others believe they were just window dressing, a way for the world to say, We saw without having to do anything about it. You don't hold your breath. Not that you could if you tried. The air is half sulfur, half soot, and all misery. That night, during wash up, Elsie's jaw bleeds again. She doesn't cry. She just presses a rag to it and lies very still. Someone braids her hair. You don't remember who. Maybe you, maybe Lucy. You tuck her in with the scratchy blanket and pretend not to see the blood soaking through the cloth. You've seen it before. Fossy jaw. It starts slow. A toothache. Swelling. Then a pus-filled abscess. Then the jawbone begins to die. Literally rot. Emitting that sweet, sickly odor you can't ever forget. The doctors used to say it was contagious. It's not. It's just convenient to isolate the dying. Once, a girl had it so bad her cheekbone fell out while she was eating soup. They buried her wrapped in her work apron. You lie awake a long time, listening to Elsie breathe, like gravel in a bucket. Lucy hums again. Her voice is thinner now. She's lost weight. You can tell because her dress doesn't fit anymore. It hangs off her shoulders like laundry on a windy line. You squeeze her hand. She squeezes back. Tomorrow will come. It always does. And it will bring smoke and fire and splinters and song. And you'll face it all, like always, with sore fingers, cracked lips, and that tiny flame inside you that hasn't gone out yet. Not yet. The next morning begins before your eyes even open. Your body rises before your mind does, pulling you upright with the stiff, creaky resolve of someone 3 times your age. Your legs ache like you've climbed stairs in your sleep. Maybe you have. You wouldn't put it past your own subconscious to look for an exit. Elsie's bunk is empty. No one says anything. You step around the damp rag she left behind, the one still faintly pink with blood. Someone folded it neatly. Someone always does. She's gone. Maybe she's in hospital. Maybe she's on the boat to the country, as the rumors go. Maybe she's ashes behind the tannery. Whatever the truth, it won't visit this room again. Her space will be taken by another girl within the week, one whose name you'll forget just in time for her to disappear too. Downstairs, the factory bell rings. A noise like that shouldn't control your life, and yet it does. It's a god, a cruel one, with perfect timing and zero empathy. You file into the factory, stepping in rhythm with the rest of the girls. It's like a parade for ghosts. Today, something new awaits. A broom. Several of them, actually. The overseer is standing at the entrance with a sour expression and a clipboard. We're trialing sanitation rotations, he announces. You blink. So does Lucy. New policy, he mutters. Part of safety reforms. Every girl sweeps her station at end of shift. Happy? No one answers. But everyone knows what this is. The man with the notebook. The outsider. They're trying to make things look better. That's all this is. A patch on a sinking ship. You pick up a broom. It's brittle, bent. The bristles fall out as you drag it across the floor. It moves the dust around more than anything else. Still, you sweep, because that's the job now. You begin to notice things you hadn't before. How the soot clings to the corners. How the match scrapings form tiny glittery piles. How bits of hair and thread and something that might be a tooth collect beneath the vats. You learn to sweep quickly, silently. Some girls draw pictures in the dust with the broom tips before wiping them away. One draws a flower. One writes mum. One draws a matchstick bent in half. You don't draw anything. You just make sure the floor under your feet isn't sticky enough to slow you down. By midday, the new brooms are forgotten. The phosphorus haze is heavier than ever. You've started keeping a damp cloth around your neck to press to your face when the fumes get too strong. It doesn't work well, but it helps you pretend. You try to distract yourself with facts. Here's one. The match industry in 19th century London was one of the largest employers of women and girls, despite being one of the deadliest. Here's another. The word Lucifer was a common term for matches back then. How appropriate. At your station, the pace seems thicker today. Maybe it's a new batch. Maybe it's just old and souring in the heat. Your fingers feel slower, like they're working through honey. The smell is worse, more acid, more desperate. Lucy asks if you want to trade trays. She thinks your burn is worse. You say no, not because you're brave, because you're used to the pain now. It's familiar, reliable. Trading it for a new kind of pain would be too much work. At break, you sit with Clara. She's the one who sings off key on purpose, just to get people to smile. She offers you a boiled sweet, rare treasure, and you both suck on it like it's the last piece of hope in the world. Then the cane arrives. Not the overseer, just the cane. It taps against the bench. You both look up. He doesn't say anything, just gestures. Too long, he growls. Break over. Back to work. You tuck the sweet behind your cheek like a squirrel hiding winter rations and scurry back to your station. The rest of the day passes in slow motion blinks. One tray, then another. You feel like you're in a loop. You almost ask Clara what time it is, then realize you don't care. Time has no real value here, only tasks do. By the time the final bell rings, your hand is cramped into a claw. You pry your fingers open one by one and stumble out into the cool, wet air. Rain tonight, cold and sticky, like someone's dog sneezed on the sky. You let it hit your face. It's probably the cleanest thing that's touched you all day. Back in the dorm, there's a surprise. Elsie's bunk is still empty, but her name is gone from the list on the wall, wiped clean, like she never existed. You stare at the space where her name was. Then you take out your stub of charcoal and write it back in, just for tonight. Rain is still falling by the time morning limps into the sky. Not a dramatic downpour, just a gray, spitty drizzle like London's trying to clear its throat and failing miserably. You pull your apron tighter, though it does absolutely nothing to keep the damp out. Everything's damp. Your sleeves, your socks, the straw in your mattress, possibly your soul. Lucy sneezes twice in a row, then again for emphasis. She gives you a sheepish smile, which you return with your best, you're probably not dying yet face. It's hard to tell anymore. What's just a cold, and what's the start of something with a name? The alley behind the dorm is shin deep in sludge. You shuffle through it like a waterlogged duckling, boots squelching, skirts dragging through. What you're really hoping is just mud. The girls walk in silence, heads down, bracing against the wind and against the day. Inside the factory, everything smells sharper, sulfur mingled with wet wood and mildew, the usual perfume of despair with a hint of Tuesday. At your station, a new girl is waiting. She's tiny, probably 6. She wears shoes that are more holes than leather, and her apron hangs off her frame like a curtain on a nail. She doesn't talk, just stares, big eyes, hollowed cheeks. She's in your spot. You freeze for a moment, then step to the next table over. Nobody says a word. The older girls told you this would happen. The day you stop having your own spot, you're on the list. The invisible one. The won't last long list. You're not offended, just quietly aware. Midway through the shift, there's a crash. Not a small one, not a tray, something bigger. A shelf collapses. A tin of phosphorus paste goes flying. Time stops. There's a sizzle as it hits the floor. A puff of smoke. Then, fire. Real fire this time. Not a flare. Not a spark. A blooming, hissing, greedy thing that licks up the table legs and grabs for the curtains like it's late for a feast. Girls scream. Some run, some freeze. One falls. You dive under your station. The air is thick and red. You hear someone yelling, "Water, water," and someone else crying for their mum. The overseer's voice cracks like a whip. Then, miraculously, the flames choke out. A bucket found its mark. Maybe two. Smoke hangs like a question no one wants to answer. When the air clears, everyone's accounted for, except the new girl. She's not hurt. She's just gone. Found later, crouched behind the door, eyes wide, shivering like a leaf in a thunderstorm. She doesn't come back the next day. Some say her uncle took her in. Others say she ran. One girl swears she saw her crawling into the crawlspace behind the vats and turning to soot. Either way, another blank spot in the dormitory. Another story that ends mid-sentence. Later, sweeping the ash away from your station, you think about all the girls whose names were never written down. The ones who worked, burned, vanished, human smoke signals in a world that never looked up. Historians still debate whether these factory fires were preventable, whether the conditions were criminal negligence or just of their time. But you know better. You were there, still are. You finish sweeping. The new broom is already unraveling. Clara joins you near the furnace, where the match heads are dried. She pulls something from her pocket. A potato, boiled, still warm. You stare at it like it's a diamond. Found it in the trash, she whispers proudly. She breaks it in half and gives you the bigger piece. You both nibble like mice, chewing slowly to make it last. You don't say thank you. You just hum together. An old tune. Church, maybe. Or something someone's mother once sang. The kind of tune that keeps the walls from closing in. The fire didn't get you today. Neither did the cold. Neither did the invisible list. You're still here. Still dipping. Still burning, but not out. Not yet. The days begin to blur, like someone smeared the edges of the calendar with wet ink. You stop counting shifts. You start counting bruises. One on your shin from the bench. One on your elbow from a cart. One just below your collarbone that you don't quite remember getting. Lucy counts too, but she's doing it out loud, under her breath, as if she's narrating her own survival story. Day 27. Still here. You nod when she says it. You're not sure if the number is right, but it sounds convincing enough. You've grown used to the rhythm of the factory. If used to means you flinch slightly less, me would when the vats bubble. If it means you only dream about fire 3 nights a week instead of 5. But today something's missing. At lunch, you reach into your apron pocket for your bread crust. Gone. You stare at your fingers as if they betrayed you. Then you remember, this morning, the overseer made you turn out your pockets to prevent theft. You think maybe the crust went with it. You sit beside Claire anyway, chewing the inside of your cheek. It tastes like chalk and bitterness. Here, Clara says, breaking her crust in two. She shoves half into your hand and won't take no for an answer. It's damp from her palm. You eat it anyway. You lean against the wall. It creaks. You think, maybe I'll lean hard enough to fall through it. Then what? Freedom? Or just the alley behind the factory, filled with rats and broken crates and older girls you don't see anymore? The truth is, some girls vanish. Not dramatically, not with smoke or screams. Just one day, their bunk is empty. Their tray sits untouched. Their apron still hangs by the door, smelling faintly of vinegar and sweat, and no one says a word. Because here, silence is safer than memory. You remember Mary. She had 2 braids and sang in French, even though she didn't speak it. She said it made her sound mysterious. One day, she went to the lavatory. and never came back. Runaway? Maybe. Gone? Definitely. The overseer called it regrettable. You called it merry. Historians rarely mention these girls by name. They speak in numbers. Statistics: average age of death, 16. Average wage, 7 shillings a week. But you remember faces, scabs, the sound of someone laughing for no reason at all. You get back to work. Dip. Shake. Lay out. The new paste is thinner than usual, more watery. It drips off the sticks like spoiled milk. You try to be careful, but your tray ends up streaked and slippery. You know this will earn a scolding, or worse. Sure enough, the overseer passes by and stops. He sniffs. Too much paste, he says. Wasteful. You don't answer. He lifts your tray, inspects it like a critic reviewing a doomed play, then dumps the whole thing in the bin. Your heart sinks. Half a day's work. Gone. Start again, he says, and faster this time. You start again. Not because you want to, because that's what girls like you do. In the back corner, one girl collapses. Not fainting, just kneeling. Slowly, then sitting on the floor like her bones are being uncooperative. The overseer doesn't notice. Neither does anyone else, except you. You pass her a damp cloth from your station without a word. She takes it, dabs her face. Doesn't get up. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe not. You think about Sundays. They're not really days off, just less death days. You spend them doing laundry, boiling rags, scraping lice from seams, and listening to older girls talk about what life used to be like before the factory. One swears she once had a cat. Another says her mom wore red shoes. You don't remember much before this. A woman who smelled like flour, maybe. A window with flowers on the sill. A blanket with stars. Or maybe you imagine those. You don't trust your memories anymore. They come wrapped in fog, and they smell like matches. As you leave the factory that night, Lucy tugs your sleeve. Do you think we'll still be here next year? She asks. You shrug. Maybe. Do you want to be? That one takes longer. Eventually you say, I just want to have all my teeth. She laughs. It's a good laugh, raspy and real. You both walk home in the drizzle, boots squelching, hands in your pockets. Still here, still whole, still hoping, against all logic, that tomorrow will be slightly less flammable. You dream of teeth, not just yours, everyone's, rows and rows of them, scattered across the factory floor like ivory dominoes. You try to gather them, but every time you bend down, more fall from your own mouth. They click like bones against the wood, and when you scream, sulfur smoke pours out instead of sound. You wake with your hand pressed to your jaw, breathing hard. Still there, for now. Lucy is already up, wrapping her burnt fingers with cloth she tore from the hem of her dress. She hums her morning tune, slightly off key, deliberately upbeat. It's how she protects herself, like a charm made of sound. In the alley, the usual puddles wait for you, still confident you'll step in them. You do. Of course you do. Inside the factory, something strange is happening. There's silence. Not the normal, sleepy silence. Not the hum of matching movements or the rhythmic tap of trays. This is the hush of expectation, like a storm that forgot to arrive. You notice it first near the vats. The paste. It's different. Not yellow, but pale red. Not sulfurous, but chalky. Clara leans over and whispers, red phosphorus. Safer. They say it doesn't rot your jaw. You blink at her. Why? She shrugs. Some woman complained to Parliament, made a fuss, wrote articles. You feel the tray in your hands wobble. This matters. This means someone out there saw, heard, did something. Historians now mark this as the start of reform, the slow shift away from white phosphorus to safer compounds. It took years. Laws, protests, the match girls strike. But here, in this moment, all you know is that The paste smells less like death. It's something the overseer doesn't explain. Of course not. He just scowls like safer materials are a personal inconvenience. Work faster, he grumbles. Costs more. But the girls move differently today. Lighter. Like someone cracked the window open in their lungs. It's subtle, but real. And then, because the universe loves irony, Lucy faints. Right there, tray in hand. She crumples like a paper doll. Silent and slow. You're the first to reach her. Her lips are pale, skin clammy. Her forehead burns under your touch. She needs water, you mutter. She needs food, Clara says. She needs a mother, someone else adds. The overseer sighs like you're all being inconvenient. Eventually, she's moved to the side room, the one usually reserved for broken equipment and girls who no longer produce enough matches per hour. You follow, uninvited. She stirs once, murmurs, "Don't let them take my tray." You squeeze her hand. "You're not a tray," you whisper. "You're Lucy." She doesn't reply. You sit beside her for the rest of your break. The others cover for you, switching trays, whispering excuses. You'll pay for it later, in beatings maybe, or extra shifts, but you don't care because Lucy's breathing evens out, and that's enough. That night, in the dorm, the new paste still clings to your fingernails. It's dry, harmless, doesn't glow in the dark. You stare at your hands under the lamplight. No glow, no poison, no fire. You almost cry, not from pain, from the absence of it. Lucy's curled beside you, cheeks flushed from the fever, but breathing steady. Clara hums in the corner. Her tune is familiar now, something between a lullaby and a protest chant. The bunk creaks. The wind rattles the shutters. And you think, just for a second, that this isn't how the story ends. You think maybe not all the girls disappear. Maybe some stay. Maybe some grow up. Maybe some write articles. Maybe some light matches that don't burn them. You fall asleep with the taste of red phosphorus in your nose and something suspiciously like hope tucked under your bruised ribs. The next morning smells different. Still industrial, still sharp, but with less of that invisible singe. The air doesn't claw your throat the way it used to. You catch yourself taking a deep breath and not instantly regretting it. You're suspicious. Hope is not a natural instinct here. It's more like a stray cat. It shows up when you least expect it, doesn't let you touch it, and usually disappears the second you try to feed it. The red phosphorus has stayed. That's the biggest surprise. Normally, anything good vanishes after one day, like a mirage made of propaganda. But here it is, still chalky, still not actively trying to kill you. You dip more confidently, maybe even a little too confidently. You flick a bit of paste across the table, and it lands on the hem of your skirt. You expect it to sizzle. It doesn't. You let out the tiniest, most scandalous laugh. Lucy, beside you again today, grins. "I miss that sound," she whispers. You pretend you didn't hear her, because if you acknowledge that things might be okay, the universe usually responds by setting something on fire. Speaking of which, there's a new notice posted at the front of the factory. You can't read it. Not entirely. The letters wobble and blur, and you never did get proper schooling. But Clara squints and reads it aloud during break. Factory to phase out white phosphorus entirely by next quarter. Someone gasps. Someone else drops their cup. Someone says, "What's a quarter?" It doesn't matter. What matters is the phrase phase out. It means a plan, a direction, an end. You sit with that idea like it's a warm brick in your lap. At lunch, someone brings a book. Yes, a book. Stolen? Borrowed? Rescued from a bin? Who knows? The pages are bent and smeared with something that might be ink or jam. But it's real. And inside it are stories. You all gather around like birds around a dropped biscuit. Clara reads, slowly, carefully, stumbling over big words but doing it anyway. It's a story about a girl who gets lost in a forest and befriends a bear. The logic is fuzzy, but you're enraptured. A bear that protects her instead of eating her? What a concept. The story ends with the girl going home, not burning, not fading, just going home. You don't realize you've been crying until Lucy nudges you and says, "Stop leaking." You laugh, you hiccup, you wipe your nose on your sleeve and try to look casual about it. Back at the stations, something clicks into place. Your fingers move faster. Not because you're scared, but because for once, you want to. You want the tray to be full. You want the matches to dry smooth and clean. You want someone to come by, look at your work, and not find a single thing wrong. And when the overseer walks past this time, he actually nods. Not with kindness, but not with cruelty either. It's as close to a compliment as you'll ever get from a man with a cane and a superiority complex. In the corner, the girl with the two big boots, her name might be Dot, starts humming. This time, it's a different song. A little faster, a little lighter. Clara joins in, then Lucy, then you. It's not a rebellion. It's not a strike. It's not anything anyone would write a headline about. But it is noise, happy noise. Noise that says, we're still here, we're still singing, and for now that's enough. That night, back in the dorm, Lucy sits brushing her hair. Yes, brushing, with an actual brush. Where she got it, no one knows. Rumor is she found it in a coal bin behind a church. She offers it to you. You hesitate, then take it. It feels like luxury, like a thing rich girls do before bed while their governess reads them poetry. You run it through your tangles carefully, reverently. It's not just about hair, it's about ownership. It's about touching something and knowing it's yours, even if just for a minute. The factory is still there. The danger hasn't disappeared, but it's quieter now, less like a scream, more like a whisper. And if you lean close enough, you think it's saying, you might make it. You don't expect the inspector to return. No one does. But 3 days after the red phosphorus arrives, he strolls in again. Hat slightly crooked, shoes a little too clean for someone who's supposedly seen suffering. He's not alone this time. A woman trails behind him, buttoned up in navy wool and certainty. She's taking notes before she even speaks. The factory quiets down. Dipping slows. The matchsticks tremble slightly between fingers. Not from fear, well, maybe a little, but mostly from curiosity. This woman isn't dressed like someone here to scold or supervise. She's dressed like someone who gets listened to. That's a rare sight. The overseer attempts to explain things loudly, proudly. All girls are rotated now. Safer materials. Improved hygiene. As you can see, he gestures dramatically at the mop, leaning against the corner like it hasn't moved since Christmas. The woman cuts him off. We'll speak with the workers. The room collectively flinches, not in fear, in disbelief. No one ever speaks with the girls, only about them. Clara is chosen first, then Lucy, then you. You wipe your hands on your apron, suddenly aware of every crack in your fingernails, every smear of paste on your sleeves. The woman doesn't smile, but she doesn't frown either. She just listens. She asks how long you've worked here, how your fingers feel, whether anyone's shown you what to do if a girl collapses mid-shift, whether you've ever seen the evacuation plan. Evacuation plan? You and Lucy exchange a look. There is no plan, unless run screaming towards the alley counts. You tell the truth, mostly. Not everything. Not the burn under your left thumbnail. Not the 2 times you coughed blood and spat it into your apron so no one would see. But you do tell her about the missing gloves, the broken trays, the matches that sometimes hiss when they shouldn't. She writes it all down, word for word. You're not sure what to feel. Later, Back at your station, Clara whispers, she's a campaigner, writes for the Times, thinks she's trying to make a law. A law? You chew on that idea like it's a tough piece of bread. A rule that says girls like you shouldn't burn, shouldn't rot, shouldn't disappear before your second set of molars come in. The very thought feels subversive. Historians still discuss this moment when public outcry over the match girl conditions began to spread. Editorials, petitions, even pamphlets with titles like A Strike of Light and The Cost of a Match. At the time, you didn't know any of that. You just knew someone listened. That night, the dormitory buzzes, girls speculating, fantasizing. What if they shut it down? What if we get holidays? What if they give us mittens? You giggle into your pillow, not because it's likely, because it's the first time in months you've heard hope spoken aloud, like it isn't some dangerous rumor. Lucy draws little stars on the wall above her bed with soot. One for each day she hasn't fainted. She's up to 4. You draw a star too, for the first time, not because you survived something horrible, but because something good might actually happen. Might. It's a fragile thing, but it's yours. You drift to sleep, humming the tune from earlier, the one Clara sang with her eyes closed. The tune has no words, but you're pretty sure if it did, they'd say, "We are not done yet." It starts with a cough, not yours this time, Lucy's again. A sharp rattling thing that cuts through the morning fog like someone dragging a spoon across a washboard. She waves you off, smiling with lips too pale to be reassuring. "Just the weather," she croaks. "My lungs haven't caught up with spring, but it's not spring. It's still February, still gray, still wet, still exactly the kind of chill that clings to your bones and refuses to leave politely." By the time you arrive at the factory, a new sign has been posted. Not the usual handwritten grumble from the overseer, but something official, printed, sealed, stapled on all 4 corners, like it's afraid of being torn down too soon. You gather with the others to read it, even if most of you still can't. Clara reads aloud. In accordance with new factory law, all match manufacturers must eliminate use of white phosphorus by end of year. Violations will result in closure. A ripple moves through the girls, a wave of breath, half hope, half disbelief. Then someone says what you're all thinking. They actually did it. Not everything, no. Not justice, not fairness, not even a raise, but something. A law. A rule that says girls shouldn't die by the dozens for the privilege of lighting someone else's cigar. You return to your tray with a strange feeling lodged under your ribs. Relief? Maybe. But something else too. Dread. Because change, like fire, doesn't come without smoke. Sure enough, the overseer is fuming. Lazy mouths. "That's what you are," he barks. "Red phosphorus costs more. Output must increase. No dawdling, no chatting, no humming." You hum anyway, softly. He doesn't notice, or pretends not to. Lucy struggles that day. Her cough worsens. She drops her tray once. The paste splatters across the floor like someone threw up powdered sugar in pain. You help her clean it before anyone sees. In the corner, Dot sits with a handkerchief pressed to her jaw. Her face is swollen. Her eye doesn't quite open all the way. She insists it's just a toothache. You know better. But no one says "Fossy jaw" out loud anymore. It's a banned phrase, like saying "fire" in a theater. You hold Lucy's tray for her when she can't lift it. She scribbles you a thank you note on the back of a Matchbox label. You save it in your apron pocket like treasure. Lunch is thinner today, just broth. But someone's brought a carrot. One whole carrot. Clara divides it with the precision of a surgeon. You get a sliver. It tastes like heaven. You chew it slowly, making it last, and for just a moment you imagine what a table full of food might look like. Not just food, choices. Meat that isn't gristle, bread that doesn't crack a molar, fruit you don't have to dream to taste. Someone tells a joke about the overseer tripping into a paste vat. You nearly spit your soup. The laughter feels dangerous, like you're all getting away with something. You love it. That night, Lucy is quieter than usual. She doesn't sing, doesn't doodle on the wall. She just curls into herself and whispers, "Don't let me be one of the forgotten ones." You nod, not because you agree, but because you've already written her name beside your pillow. In pencil, yes, but dark and deep. You fall asleep, with your hand curled around her ankle, just to make sure she's still there when you wake up. You dream of nothing, and it's the best sleep you've had in weeks. You wake up and Lucy is gone. Not gone, as in disappeared, not yet, just not in her bed. Her blanket is tossed back, still warm. Her boots are missing. Her apron hook is empty. You sit up, heart thudding with that familiar rhythm. What now? What next? What's been taken? You find her in the alley. She's sitting on a crate, knees to her chest, shivering, eyes red. She looks at you and tries to smile. It doesn't work. Didn't want to cough in your face again, she whispers. You sit beside her. For a while, neither of you speaks. The city stretches around you, soot in the air, milkmen shouting, carts rattling, chimney smoke curling up into the heavy clouds, like everything is trying to leave. Eventually, she mutters, "I don't want to die in there." You stare at your feet. One lace is broken. You'd been meaning to fix it with twine, but somehow the days always eat your minutes. "I don't want you to either," you say. She leans her head on your shoulder. Then the bell rings. Of course it does. The day drags. Every motion feels magnified. Every dip, every tray, every breath. Lucy tries to work, but she's slower now, paler. She moves like her body is made of soggy matches, liable to snap under pressure. The overseer notices, naturally. By mid-afternoon, he's barking again. Lazy, weak. I've seen better effort from chimney boys. You say nothing. Lucy flinches. And then Clara does something extraordinary. She stands, calm, direct, says, "She's sick, sir." The room freezes. Even the sulfur fumes seem to pause. The overseer blinks, mouth open. "She should see the infirmary," Clara adds. There is no infirmary, just a mop closet with a rickety chair and a bottle of vinegar. But still, saying it aloud feels like tearing open a curtain. He growls, "Do you want to take her place then?" Clara smiles sweetly. Yes. And just like that, Lucy is escorted, gently, astonishingly, out of the room. You feel your chest unclench, a little. The rest of the day is a blur. Your hands move without your permission. Your feet ache in rhythms you don't bother naming anymore. But the thought that Lucy is out of harm's reach, at least for a few hours, propels you forward. After the final bell, you find Clara by the furnace. She's red-faced and exhausted. Her tray output was double today. You know she pushed harder to cover for Lucy. You press half your bread into her hand. She doesn't argue. That night, Lucy is back in her bunk, wrapped in 2 blankets, eyes half closed, but breathing evenly. She mutters something about someone bringing her a boiled potato. You think it might have been one of the younger girls. Dot, maybe. Kindness here doesn't announce itself. It shows up quietly, like a spoon on your pillow, or a warm rag folded just right. You sit at the end of her bed, scraping wax off the floorboards with your fingernail, and talk about nonsense. Carrots, pigeons, whether ghosts can get jobs. She laughs once, a real one. You store that laugh in your chest like it's gold. The stars Clara drew on the wall are still there. You add 2 more. Tonight they feel earned. Tomorrow is another shift, another round of dipping, another battle with trays and fumes and men with clipboards pretending not to see. But tonight Lucy is warm, Clara is brave, you are not alone. And the stars are multiplying. By morning, Lucy is upright again. Wobbly, yes, keen, pale, always. But she's standing. And in this world, standing counts as victory. She even manages to braid her hair, although the ends are uneven and she drops the comb twice. You help her tie her apron. It's soft from too many washes, the fabric thin to nearly translucent. You tighten the knot gently, like sealing her back into herself. Out in the alley, the rain has given up pretending. It's just drizzle now, resigned, uninterested. The puddles have mostly absorbed into the cobblestones, leaving behind a slick film that threatens every ankle with theatrical collapse. You avoid the worst spots by memory. Inside the factory, something's off. It's too quiet. Not the everyone's still asleep kind of quiet. The nervous kind. The waiting for bad news kind. The overseer is pacing, not yelling, not scowling, pacing. You've never seen him unsure of anything. It's like watching a dog forget how to bark. Then he stops, slaps the table with his ledger, and mutters, "It's coming." Someone whispers, "What's coming?" He doesn't answer, which is worse than anything. By midday, a rumor slithers through the trays. The factory's being inspected. Again. This time, it's not just some clipboard man and a pencil skirt with ethics. It's the board, with capital letters. The board, Clara says, dragging out the vowels like it's a ghost story. They decide who gets shut down. You blink. Shut down? She shrugs. That's what happened to the one in Bow Street. They turned it into a textile warehouse. What happened to the girls? Lucy asks. Don't know, Clara says. Some found new jobs, some didn't. Didn't? The word hangs like a guillotine. Historians still argue whether closures helped or hurt. Some say it pushed girls into worse work. Sweatshops, street cleaning, worse. Others insist it saved lives, cut deaths, ended jaw rot. Both might be right. Both might be wrong. Either way, today's different. You notice your fingers are trembling. It's not the fumes this time. It's the weight of maybe. Maybe this place ends. Maybe you won't have to dip forever. Maybe that's scarier than the alternative. You find yourself working more carefully than usual. Neat rows, perfect dips, spacing the sticks with the precision of a dentist placing teeth. Around you, the others do the same. Even Dot, who usually sings off-key and glues her fringe to her forehead with sweat, is focused. Her tongue sticks out slightly as she arranges her tray. The overseer says nothing, just watches. When the bell rings for break, no one moves. Out of fear, out of discipline, maybe both. Eventually Clara stands. Eat, she says, because whatever happens, it won't be better on an empty stomach. You chew on a hunk of bread so dry it might have started life as stone. Lucy shares a boiled egg. You split it in quarters. It tastes like hope. After the break, you return to your station and find a note on your tray. Scrawled in ink, smudged slightly from damp fingers, you do good work. No name, no signature. You glance around. Everyone's pretending not to look. You press the note flat and fold it into your apron pocket next to Lucy's matchbox drawing and your stub of charcoal. By the end of the day, no one shows up. No inspectors, no boards, no announcements. Just the same sulfur haze and the same aching wrists and the same girls trying to become more than ghosts. Still, something's changed. You don't know what, but as you walk home through the drizzle, Lucy reaches out and takes your hand. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't need to, because sometimes silence isn't fear. Sometimes it's peace. You start to keep a list, not on paper. Who has the luxury? But in your head, a quiet roll call of things that are different. Small things. Things that might be nothing. Or everything. The red phosphorus hasn't run out. The overseer hasn't shouted in 3 days. The girls are humming again, this time in harmony. Clara smiled at her reflection. That last one nearly broke you, because seeing someone recognize their own face and not flinch, that's rare. It's like watching a match strike without sparking panic. A miracle in the shape of a moment. Lucy adds to your mental list too. She says, they let us open the windows, and you don't believe her until you see it. One tiny window, cracked just enough to let in a breeze. It smells like soot and horse droppings. Yes, but also outside. It smells like freedom's less hygienic cousin. The breeze hits your face like a question you don't know how to answer. At your tray, you work quietly. There's a rhythm now, one you don't fight. Dip, flick, space, dip, flick, space. Your fingers are blistered, yes, but they've also learned. They move faster now, smarter. They remember for you, even when your mind drifts. Today it drifts to a rumor. Someone says there's a girl at the East End factory who wrote a letter to the Queen. The actual Queen? You ask, half choking on your crust. Swear on my last boot, says Clara. What did she write? Don't know. Something about the girls, the burns, the bones, the jaw things. The jaw things? That's how you all refer to it now. You can't say Fossey jaw out loud. It makes the gums ache just to hear it. The rumor grows. They say the letter got a reply. Not from the Queen herself, obviously, but someone official. Someone who could do something. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. What matters is the whisper, the belief, the idea that someone might be listening. Historians will later track these letters, some real, some imagined, as sparks in the Match Girl movement. Some were smuggled out of factories, others dictated to kind strangers with pens and patience. All of them lit a fuse. But you don't know that yet. You just know Lucy's coughing less. That alone feels historic. At lunch, Dot produces a miracle. A turnip. Boiled. Salted. Cut with surprising grace into equal pieces. She shares without ceremony. Clara licks her fingers. This tastes like retirement. You laugh so hard it echoes. That night, Lucy draws a flower on the wall with her charcoal nub. You ask what kind. She shrugs. Doesn't matter. It's alive. You nod. You draw beside it. A house. Lopsided. Smoke curling from the chimney. A chicken, possibly. A tree. Definitely. A home. You stare at it until your eyes sting. Clara watches from her bunk. Yours? She asks. Not yet, you say. The lights dim. Not that they were ever bright. Just oil lamps stuttering against the dark. You lie down and listen. To breathing, to humming, to the scratch of chalk on stone. Lucy's voice drifts over like fog. You think they'll remember us? You answer without thinking. They'd better, because you're not just girls, not just hands, not just numbers. You're a list of names, bruises, dreams, coughs, and crumbs shared in the dark. You're Clara's hymn, Lucy's laugh, Dot's turnip, your flower. You're the spark. And for once, you're not afraid to burn. The next day, the overseer wears a tie, an actual honest-to-queen bit of cloth, cinched around his throat, like it's trying to apologize for everything his mouth has ever said. It's crooked and too shiny, but unmistakably a tie. You stare at it like it's a ghost. Clara mutters, must be a visit. She's right. By mid-morning, the factory door opens, and in walks a trio of suits. Not the usual kind either. These are pressed, buttoned, and important. One of them carries a pocket watch so shiny you can see your future in it, if your future involves paperwork and spectacles. The overseer puffs himself up like a pigeon in a thunderstorm. This way, gentlemen, he chirps. You'll find everything in excellent order. He gestures at the red phosphorus like he invented it. You resist the urge to dip your matchstick in his tea. The suits don't say much. They observe, take notes, walk slowly. One of them, a younger man with ink-stained fingers, stops at Lucy's station. She straightens. You hold your breath. He doesn't speak, just watches her dip, sees the steady hands, the careful spacing, the way she shields her tray with her body like it's a secret worth keeping. He nods once, then moves on. After they leave, the overseer lets out a sigh so dramatic it might qualify as performance art. You expect things to tighten, stricter rules, harsher oversight. But instead, something odd happens. The next day, there's bread. Not crusts, not scraps. Bread. Delivered in a basket. Still warm. One loaf for every 5 girls. Real slices. Real butter. You blink. Dot nearly faints from shock. Is this a trick? She asks. Clara pokes the bread. If it is, it's the tastiest trick I've ever eaten. You tear your slice in half and give the bigger piece to Lucy. No one says anything, because no one wants to jinx it. Historians would later call these gestures preemptive reforms, a desperate scramble by factory owners to avoid regulation, strikes, and public outrage. But to you, it's just warm bread. And warm bread, in a world built on cold ash, is everything. Later that week, a new girl arrives. She's 7, maybe 8. Hair chopped short like someone used kitchen shears in the dark. She doesn't speak, not even her name. You don't ask. Instead, you take her to your tray. Show her how to dip, how to flick, how to lay the sticks just so. She copies you without blinking. At lunch, you share your slice of potato with her. She chews like she's afraid it will vanish mid-bite. That night, Lucy names her. Let's call her Nell, she says. You nod. Nell it is. Nell doesn't argue, but she does hum, quietly, when she thinks no one's listening. The dormitory feels different now, not better, not safe, but different. There are drawings on the wall, stars, trees, names. One girl started a mural of the river, though it mostly looks like snakes fighting. Lucy writes dates in the corner. Her own calendar. It includes first good bread day, no burn week, and rumor of kittens heard outside. Hope has moved in like a tenant who refuses to pay rent but somehow improves the furniture. You still wake coughing sometimes. You still wince when you stretch your fingers. But you also wake knowing someone will nudge you if you oversleep. That Clara will share whatever vegetable she's hoarded. That Nell will tuck her feet behind your back when it gets cold. You are not healed, but you are not alone. And sometimes, that's the beginning. The factory bell doesn't ring, not at its usual hour anyway. You all wake, bleary and blinking, expecting the familiar clang that signals another day of fumes, trays, and gritted teeth. But it doesn't come. You sit up slowly, waiting for someone to yell, for someone to burst through the dormitory door and demand to know why you're not already sweating by sunrise. Still, nothing. You exchange glances with Lucy, Clara, Nell. The silence feels too full, like it's holding its breath. Eventually, someone opens the door, and then the whispers start. They're shutting it down. What? For inspection. Forever? The word forever hangs in the room like coal dust. Outside, the overseer's pacing again. Only this time, he's not puffed up. He's deflated. Like someone pricked his pride with a pin and all the hot air leaked out. 2 men from the board are there. Again. One of them is pointing at a clipboard. The other is shaking his head. You're not invited to the conversation, obviously, but you've learned to read the body language of men who make decisions for girls they've never learned the names of. Clara whispers, they're closing the floor for 2 days. Maybe more. 2 days. 2 full days without sulfur. Without paste. Without trays or quotas or burns. The dormitory doesn't know what to do with this information. You don't either. That afternoon, Lucy suggests something outrageous. Let's walk. You blink. Where? She shrugs. Anywhere. And so you do. A small group of you, Lucy, Clara, Nell, Dot, you, sneak out the back. Down the alley. Past the butcher's cart. and the bakery that never sells you anything but always smells like cake and wealth. You walk toward the river. It's not the pretty kind, but it's wide, real. It moves. You stare at the water and feel your lungs stretch in ways they're not used to. Nell picks up a rock and throws it. It plops. She grins. You all take turns, chucking stones like you're throwing away the last few months, maybe years. Even Clara laughs. It's a rusty sound, but real. Let's run, Lucy says suddenly. What? Just to that tree. The tree in question is barely more than a stick with ambition, but you nod, and then you run. All of you. Skirts flapping, boots thudding, hair coming loose. You don't look elegant. You don't care. You run like girls who've had enough of standing still. When you reach the tree, gasping, grinning, falling into one another, you realize something. You're still alive. Not just breathing, alive. Back at the dormitory that night, you draw another picture. This time it's the river, the tree, 5 girls running. No one says a word as you add it to the wall. You don't know if the factory will reopen. You don't know if the reforms will last. But you do know that something inside you has shifted. You know that if they shut this place down, you'll find another way. Maybe not easy, but yours. Because you're not just matchstick girls anymore. You're runners, drawers, stone throwers, fireproof in all the ways that matter. 2 days turn into 3. 3 into a week. The factory doesn't reopen. No bell, no paste, no trays waiting like little rows of punishment. Just the quiet buzz of rumor and the stunned pause of routine breaking down. At first, no one believes it. You all keep waking early, expecting someone to storm in shouting, "Back to work," but no one does. Instead, the days stretch open like pockets you didn't know you had. Empty, strange, full of time. Clara organizes cleaning, not because anyone tells her to, but because if she scrubs the floor, she says, she doesn't think about what comes next. You help her. So does Lucy, even Nell. You polish the windows. Windows until they reflect your face, and you hardly recognize it. Not because it's cleaner, though it is, because it's yours again. Lucy makes a calendar on the wall. She marks the first day without work, with a little loaf, the second with a star, the third with a drawing of a chair. Why a chair, you ask? She grins. It's the first time I sat down without worrying someone would shout. Oh, you understand that kind of freedom. You all do. Clara tells stories now, out loud, about her mum, who once bought an orange from a sailor, about a kitten she swears followed her home in the snow. Dot tries to make soup. It's mostly hot water and guesswork, but it's warm. And she shares, that week, someone brings chalk. Real chalk. You don't ask from where. That's not the point. The dormitory walls become a mural. Stars, names, flowers, a house with a crooked roof, a tree. The 5 of you running, and in the center, someone writes, "We were here." Not neatly, not perfectly, but boldly. One afternoon, a woman from the Times visits again. She sits with you and asks questions, real ones. What do you want? What do you need? What would help other girls like you? Clara speaks first, then Lucy, then you. You say things you didn't know you'd been storing in your chest. You say, I want girls to work without burning. You say, I want to keep my teeth. You say, I want to matter. The woman writes it all down. She thanks you. You don't know if anything will change, but the fact she came back means someone remembers. Historians will point to this as a turning point. The match girl strikes, the factory closures, the new laws, the shift in public opinion, the start of protections, however flimsy. But you remember different things. Clara's songs, Lucy's cough fading into a whisper, Nell humming without fear, bread that arrived warm like a promise, and stars that didn't come from phosphorus, but from hands holding chalk. Because what they'll never fully understand is this: you weren't just workers, you were girls. And you burned brighter than any match ever made. And now, the factory falls behind. The matchsticks are all dipped. The trays are washed and drying under a sky that doesn't feel quite so gray. You lie down on your bunk, the familiar creak beneath you like a lullaby. Your apron is folded at your feet. Your fingers, though still aching, rest easy. You can still feel the hum of that last laugh, Dot spilling turnip water on her skirt, Clara pretending to faint from joy when someone brought a potato. You can smell the chalk, hear the scratch on the wall. The words are still there. We were here, and you were, through the smoke and the sulfur, the coughing fits and the cracked fingernails, the vanishing girls and the breadcrumbs passed hand to hand. You were here. And somehow, you're still here, still dreaming, still whole in all the ways that count. So tonight, you don't dream of fire. You dream of open windows, of rivers wide enough to carry you anywhere, of houses with crooked roofs and chickens in the yard, of laughter with no echo of pain, of a morning that doesn't start with a bell, but with birdsong. And if, tomorrow, someone knocks on the door and says, "It's time," well, you'll get up, you'll stretch, you'll smile, and you'll ask, "Time for what?" Because now, for the first time, you have a choice. You earned it. Sleep now. The matches are out, the room is dark, and you are safe. End of script. Sweet dreams.